What I saw in that video makes me sick. Once again, a black man, Jacob Blake, has been shot by the police in broad daylight with the whole world watching. You know, I spoke to Jacob's mom and dad, sister, and other members of the family just a little bit earlier. And I told them justice must and will be done. And I told them justice must and will be done. And I told them
justice must and will be done.
A police union claims Jacob Blake was armed with a knife during a struggle before he was shot.
During the investigation following the initial incident, Mr. Blake admitted that he had a knife in his possession, and DCI agents, that's the Division of Criminal Investigation, recovered a knife from the driver's side floorboard of Mr. Blake's vehicle.
And I told them justice must and will be done.
Officers are now keeping their distance. They're at gunpoint. And that's because officers have told us, DCI, that they all, at that point, had seen him with a knife. And so they are keeping their distance in accordance with their training. This is an enhanced video, DCI doing the maximum they can do. There's a glimpse of the knife. The far left is that knife in his hand. Jacob Blake admits that. Jacob Blake admits to DCI that he had a knife in his hand, and that's what that is. It's not a cell phone. It's nothing else. He admits it.
The union says one officer was put in a headlock and 2 attempts to tase Blake didn't work. The union says Blake was armed with a knife. Witnesses recall police commands for him to dump it.
I heard them telling him drop the knife when I was recording and looking.
And yes, we truth over lies.
The knife itself is pictured there. It's a razor blade type knife. And then we had DCI, a analyst, take the shape of the knife and the size and match it to the picture to see if in fact it fit size and shape, and in fact it is a match. So we say with confidence, based on Blake's admission, based on all the officers saying it, and this video evidence, he clearly is armed with a knife as he walks around and approaches the driver's door.
This is outrageous.
All right, were you carrying a knife?
Yeah, I had my knife.
You had a knife on you?
Yeah.
Okay, in your hand or in your pocket?
Open.
You had it open?
I said it wasn't even open.
You don't think so?
That's Jacob Blake talking to investigators 2 days after Kenosha police officer Rustin Shensky shot him 7 times. The knife, found on the driver's side of the car after the shooting, is a key part of the investigation because it's why Officer Shensky told investigators he shot Blake. Prosecutors said in a press conference today both video evidence and Blake's own statements proved he had a knife at some point during the struggle with officers before he tried to drive the car away.
Once again, a black man, Jacob Blake, has been shot by the police in broad.
It is absolutely incontrovertible that Jacob Blake was armed with a knife during this encounter. Uncontroversial.
And I told them justice must and will be done. Let me begin by expressing my deep sympathy for the family of Capitol Officer Sicknick, who has died in the line of duty. Our sympathies and our concerns go out to his family, and the people responsible should be held accountable, and they will be.
This breaking news update on the January 6th Capitol insurrection. The medical examiner now says the death of U.S. Capitol Police officer was from natural causes.
And the people responsible should be held accountable.
The D.C. medical examiner's office now says he suffered a deadly stroke.
And the people responsible should be held accountable, and they will be.
The medical examiner has released the cause of death for Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. It turns out Officer Sicknick suffered a stroke and died of natural causes. Investigators initially believed that he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Making matters worse, the New York Times has quietly retracted its story about the death of Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick on January 8th. The Times wrote that Sicknick died from brain injuries that he, quote, sustained after Trump loyalists who overtook the complex struck him in the head with a fire extinguisher. But now medical experts are saying that's not true. And the paper is backpedaling, admitting that it's possible he was never even hit at all. Molly, is that retraction enough? I mean, this story went on for weeks. It was used as evidence in the impeachment trial. What do you say about this?
Well, this death of this officer, Brian Sicknick, is so sad, and I feel horrible. Accounts on the record said that he was a loving and lovely man. And his death became something of a political football because the New York Times falsely reported the circumstances of his death. It's very important to get the facts right. They allowed anonymous sources, who they previously claimed were law enforcement officials, but now seem to be saying we're not law enforcement officials, to talk about the circumstances of his death in a false manner. And they did it for political purposes. Our media, unfortunately, are so corrupt that they're willing to put forth a false story, a knowingly false story in some cases, and use it for political gain for weeks or even months or even years at a time. And then they think they can quietly backtrack when the reality is too difficult for them to ignore. They did retract this, but they did it quietly. They didn't admit they were retracting it. But the update shows that they were completely wrong in what they reported. And it really caused a lot of harm to the national debate that we were having at a very important time. This is just one example of how false the narrative has been about the situation that's going on in this country in a general sense, but also in this very specific sense about what we were dealing with at the Capitol on January 6th.